empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CTOUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience dividend agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, The Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience dividend agenda is too big for any one
Good afternoon, please.
Delegations, kindly come to your places so we may start our session of this afternoon. Mr. Chairman, with 19 delegations in the room, we have enough quorum to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. And so special that we start on time on the last meeting of the year. Sorry, I'm speaking too loud. Okay. So I'm pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council, which I will continue as soon as everyone is seated. Still have a few people coming in, I think. Yeah. Okay, so again, good afternoon, colleagues. I am pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council, which is the last regular meeting of 2024, and has been convened to consider the items contained in the order of business document CP/OD-2529/24, Rev 2, which I hereby submit for the consideration of this Council. There being no observations, we will proceed to adopt it without amendment. Adopted. Colleagues, to proceed with the second item on our agenda, I propose that we move forward with the approval of the recommendation submitted by the chair of the Committee on Inter-American Summits Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS Activities, CISC, in accordance with the guidelines for the participation of civil society organizations in OAS activities adopted by this Council through its resolution 759. This recommendation containing document CP/CISC-1170/24 pertains to the request of 12 civil society organizations to participate in the activities of the organization. Furthermore, the chair suggests instructing the Secretariat to ensure that these organizations are duly registered in the OAS registry. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. The next item on the agenda, at the request of the chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, we are tasked with considering 2 draft resolutions and receiving a report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. In this regard, I'm sorry, it's just been brought to my attention that the chair of the CAP is not here as yet. So with your agreement, we will move on to item 4, and then we will come back to item 3 when the chair is here. Huh? He's here? So we'll go to item 4 and give him a chance to come. So let's move on to item 4. And item 4, at the request of the Permanent Council of Canada, we will commemorate the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, which has been held annually on November the 20th for the last 25 years to honor the memories of those who have lost their lives due to transphobia, that is, anti-transgender violence and hate. In this regard, first, I would like to give the floor to the Permanent Representative of Canada, Ambassador Stuart Savage, for the reading of a declaration on the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. Ambassador Savage, you have the floor.
Ça marche. OK. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Of the OAS group, we are joining in this commemoration of International Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is annually November 20th of each year, which honors the life of trans persons and the persons who are gender diverse who have been murdered in the previous year. Pursuant to a recent report, we've seen 321 cases of assassinations of such individuals between October 1st, 2020 and September 30th, 2023. Allegedly 269, that is to say 2/3 of them occurred in the Americas. Obviously, the inherent dignity of all individuals and the equality of all individuals are basic principles that are contained in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Inter-American Declaration on Human Rights, and in the International Convention and the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. Mr. Chair, all individuals, trans and gender diverse, have a right to recognize and enjoy the protection of their rights and all their individual freedoms.
That transgender persons have historically been affected by exclusion, stigmatization, violence, and discrimination based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, and continue to be subject to high levels of violence, harassment, and other abuses. Violence against trans persons deprives them of their enjoyment of human rights. As stated by the IACHR, violence based on prejudice generally goes unpunished because few perpetrators tend to be arrested, charged, or tried. The lack of due diligence to address these murders and other acts of violence is a serious omission that serves to perpetuate chronic recurrences and vulnerability for trans and gender diverse persons. The Inter-American Convention Against All Forms of Discrimination and Intolerance, in force since January 2022, includes in its first article types of discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, and expression, and recognizes the existence of indirect as well as multiple or aggravated discrimination, and establishes the commitment that the state's parties to prevent, eliminate, and prohibit and punish all acts and manifestations of discrimination and intolerance, including violence. Our region has made advances in promoting and protecting the human rights of LGBTI+ persons. However, important challenges persist in terms of raising awareness and eradicating discrimination, hatred, and prejudice against trans and gender diverse persons. The member states of the OAS LGBTI+ core group joined the call of the IACHR and other international organizations for all states to adopt the necessary measures to put an end to the discrimination, violence, and exclusion against trans and gender diverse persons, promoting and protecting their full access and enjoyment of all human rights, in line with their obligations under international human rights law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador Savage, for reading this declaration on the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. Next, I would like to ask the Secretariat to play the pre-recorded remarks by the panelists that the United States requested to include in the order of business Rachel Levine, Assistant Secretary of Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Please proceed.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today. I am Admiral Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services, she, her pronouns. Transgender Day of Remembrance is a solemn day to remember those that we have lost as a result of transphobia and violence. From my travels throughout the United States, I can tell you that violence and hate are still too prominent, and that violence that targets vulnerable communities poses a threat to public health. All of us should have the ability to live our lives authentically without fear or threats of violence. Transgender people are doctors, nurses, behavioral health providers, and more. We serve in the uniformed services, we are teachers and caregivers, we are family members. But the rhetoric about our lives that is now so pervasive has tried to define us without actually understanding who we are. This rhetoric has led to increased mental health challenges and suicidal ideation. This rhetoric puts public health at risk. We need to continue to work for health equity until everyone living in the Americas can access medically necessary care without judgment or stigma. We need to say publicly to every trans person that it is okay to be you. The attacks on our community have nothing to do with science and nothing to do with medicine, and we all have a role to play in making progress without leaving anyone behind. We must strongly advocate for the most underserved and marginalized in our community, including our trans youth and trans women of color. You should be able to live your life no matter who you are or who you love. Now, I am a positive and optimistic person, and I'd like to leave you with a message of hope. It is important to remember that transgender and non-binary people are thriving in many of our communities across the Americas. But we also know that many transgender individuals are facing significant adversity. Now, I am confident that we can work towards a brighter future for our communities than in past generations. As we move forward, all of us must ensure that no one has to live in the shadows. We must ensure that all people, including transgender and non-binary community members, are not just tolerated or accepted, but welcomed and celebrated for who they are. Now, I am proud to be a transgender woman. I am proud to serve the United States as the Assistant Secretary for Health and the head of the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps. And I am proud of transgender people everywhere who courageously stand up in the face of so many challenges and are visible. Now, the challenges of the last several years have reminded us of a fundamental truth that we truly need each other, that our happiness and our very survival depend upon our connections to one another and to our community. And I would like to conclude my time with a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "We shall overcome, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Thank you.
We thank the United States delegation for that contribution to the consideration of this topic of the order of business, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. I now ask if any delegation wishes to take the floor on this agenda item. And I recognize Chile. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Chile would like to thank the delegation of Canada for its leadership in addressing this topic of the day. We'd also like to thank our panelists for appearing via video, because this is a topic that really brings to fruition this idea of more rights for more people. And as we've heard in the statement read by the Ambassador of Canada, which we of course support, there is a group of individuals which, as the Inter-American Human Rights Agreement says, that there are a group who are often deprived of their rights, and of course it should not be. Therefore, on this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we need to bring to the forefront the life experiences of these individuals, of trans persons, and in that light, I'd like to share with you some of the initiatives that we are undertaking in Chile to ensure that all individuals can exercise their fundamental human rights, such as living in a life free of violence, something that we would think would be so fundamental and so basic. Some of those initiatives include a gender equality law, our anti-discrimination reform legislation that creates institutions to grapple with discrimination, an Undersecretariat of Human Rights, a Council on Equality and Non-Discrimination that includes participation of civil society organizations, a working governmental roundtable on the rights of LGBTIQ plus individuals, protocols for trans health, and a number of other initiatives, including those aspects that have to do with trans individuals as victims of crime. I wanted to share that brief list of some of the things that we've done, because when we talk about having and ensuring people's rights, we need to bring it, as I've noted, to full fruition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the Mission of Brazil. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Obrigado, Presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Brazil would also like to thank Canada for including in this celebration of the International Transgender Day of Remembrance on the agenda of this session. It's a very important date to bring to fruition a fair and just society for all without any forms of discrimination. This must be accompanied by appropriate living conditions, equal opportunities, and a vast array of areas. In Brazil, in January 2023, we've created a special secretariat for the LGBTQ plus community. We have created a brand new organization at the federal level that seeks to ensure full implementation of our national strategy for grappling with violence against LGBTQ plus individuals. We've also created a truth and reconciliation community for individuals who have suffered the violation of their human rights in the LGBTIQ community, as well as a series of anti-violence public policies. In June of 2023, Brazil created a group of friends on gender identity in Geneva. We've also, in October 2023, have supported the Equal Rights Delegation, including Brazil, on the list of 40 some odd other countries that fight different gender identity and sexual orientation issues and the discrimination against them around the globe. We also have adopted an abbreviated procedure for individuals who may be suffering prison or a death penalty for being transsexual, LGBTQ plus in cases of asylum. We also continue to grapple with transphobia in my country, as my colleague from Canada has also mentioned. There continues to be discrimination against all these individuals, and we continue to grapple with these issues, dealing with psychological, verbal, and other forms of violence, and the so-called hate speech, which of course is something that we often try not to talk about here in this organization, but we must continue to mention to ensure that it does not take root or continue to take root because it is most unfortunately present in our societies. Let me also note that in Brazil, all individuals can report in professional context cases of transphobia in an anonymous fashion. In 2019, our Supreme Court has recognized that these offenses are very severe and can lead to not only a fine, but up to 5 years of incarceration. In this 21st century, Mr. Chair, we need to vehemently combat exclusion, prejudice that unfortunately our transgender population continues to suffer in Brazil and around the globe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of the United States. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the permanent mission of Canada for its leadership as chair of the OAS LGBTI+ core group. Also want to express gratitude to Dr. Rachel Levine for her inspiring remarks today. Her leadership and advocacy for the transgender community embody the very principles we seek to uphold as member states of this organization. Today, as we commemorate the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, we honor the memory of transgender individuals across the Americas who have lost their lives to violence. This solemn occasion also reminds us of the critical work still required to combat transphobia, discrimination, and violence that disproportionately impacts transgender persons. According to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, violence against transgender persons in the Americas remains alarmingly high. Its recent reporting highlights that many transgender individuals face targeted violence due to entrenched stigma and societal exclusion. In some member states, the average life expectancy of a transgender woman is less than 35 years, a stark and unacceptable reality. Chair, the United States reaffirms its unwavering commitment to advancing the human rights of transgender persons. This commitment includes strengthening partnerships with governments, civil society, and international organizations to address the systemic inequities that perpetuate violence and exclusion. Through our programs and policies, we seek to promote the dignity, equity, and safety of all individuals, regardless of gender identity. We also recognize and commend the OAS LGBTI+ core group in its ongoing efforts to bring issues such as this to the forefront of the organization's agenda. Together, we must work to ensure that the OAS remains a platform for amplifying the voices of members of marginalized communities and advancing policies that uphold their rights. So, Mr. Chair, let us honor those we have lost by recommitting ourselves to building societies where all people, including transgender individuals, can live free from fear and violence. As Dr. Levine has underscored this afternoon, every life lost to hate is a call to action. Let us answer that call. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Spain. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take the floor to thank Canada in their role as one of the coordinators and chairs of the LGBTQI+ group within the OAS, and I'd also like to thank the chair for its inclusion in the order of business, as well as thank the Undersecretary of Health of the United States for these comments. I believe that it is our role in the defense of democracy and human rights to create and to give greater visibility for transsexual individuals. In Spain, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have sought to embrace as the co-chair of the Coalition for Equality and Rights in the International Alliance, the public-private alliance formed and composed of 45 states, and civil society around the globe. Working with Spain and Colombia, we will be serving as co-chair starting on January 1st of this coming year. We will allow us to therefore undertake a number of initiatives that we hope will also see supported in this organization, particularly in the understanding that LGBTQI+ is not just a priority in the context of Spain's foreign policy of feminism, but also an ethical commitment that reflects our history and allows us to be fully cognizant of the tremendous challenges in the fight for human rights of all individuals. We do have a steadfast commitment to all civil rights of these groups as a country. And I'd also like to note that in 2023 in Spain, we passed our latest trans law. And the first one was over 20 years ago. I admit that that one caused me personally a lot of trouble to get past, but I do believe that it's extremely important to highlight the work of the core group for their efforts. And of course, this group and our ambassador here will always be supportive of the defense of civil rights. Here in the context of the OAS in 2025, we will continue to support the PUICA Registry of Civil Identity in the Americas for transsexual persons. On other topics, I'd also once again like to thank the core group for their work, congratulate for them, and invite them to continue. Spain stands ready to support you in your efforts to ensure justice, dignity, and respect for all individuals, and to support all efforts to do away with hate speech and discrimination due to sexual orientation. We do dream of a broader community. Thank you.
We now offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of France. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wanted simply to echo, on behalf of France, the sentiments of all those who have spoken on this important day, which is one of commemoration and memorial. As you know, France believes strongly in equality, and therefore a gift and a value that should be shared by all. And as our colleague from Spain just said, we need most especially to think of those who are most in need of that understanding and that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And thank you again to the delegation of Canada for bringing this item to the floor. Colleagues, as agreed, we can now return back to item 3, which is at the request of the chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, the task of considering 2 draft resolutions and receiving a report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. In this regard, I would like to first inquire whether we can proceed with the approval of the following 2 draft resolutions entitled Transfer of Funds from the 2023 Regular Fund Program Budget to the Capital Fund of the OAS Fellowships, Scholarships, and Training Program, and the second one, Special appropriation from the regular fund to cover additional costs of local staff of the Inter-American Children's Institute. Both draft resolutions were agreed upon by the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs during its last meeting held yesterday, Monday, December 16th, as outlined in document CP/CAAP-4032/24 and CP/CAAP-3033/24. So if there are no objections, then both draft resolutions are hereby approved. Approved. The next item referred by the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs is the presentation of the verbal report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. So now I would like to invite the Chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs to take the floor and address this matter. Ambassador Nehmer, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon. I do apologize for having been absent. I was attending to matters of state, so to the Council, I apologize. Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon and season's greetings to all. I'm deeply honored to report to the Permanent Council in my capacity as the Chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs. Excellencies, colleagues, as you may be aware, earlier this month, Dr. Maurice Robert, former Director of the Department of Economic Development, made her earthly departure. Posthumous recognition was afforded to Dr. Robert for her impactful representation and work here at the Organization of American States. That was undertaken in both councils, the Permanent Council and CD, during recent meetings. Moreover, consistent and reflective of the dedication and commitment that Dr. Robert afforded this organization, in a grand gesture of generosity, Dr. Robert has bequeathed the OAS with financial resources to underwrite expenses related to specific undertakings that falls within the remit of the Secretariat for Integral Development. Namely, the resources are earmarked for Economic Development Rapid Facility, as per Dr. Robert's final wishes and instructions. Accordingly, with much bewilderment, upon learning of the donation and the likelihood that the contributions would encounter a reduction of approximately $22,500 per the ICR policy, the matter was referred by the Chair for legal vetting. Consequently, the General Secretariat was officially also invited to acknowledge and confirm receipt of $175,000 from Dr. Robert and report its findings to the Committee on Budgetary Affairs at its recent meeting, which was held yesterday. By way of full disclosure, the General Secretariat has undertaken its due diligence and has confirmed that this contribution will not be subject to indirect cost recovery. As such, this conclusion is in compliance with Article 88 of the General Standards entitled Acceptance of Inheritances, Gifts, and Bequests, which states, and I quote, "The Secretary General may accept on behalf of the organization inheritances, gifts, or bequests for uses consistent with the purposes of the organization, advising the Permanent Council thereof." I close quotes. The CAP took note of the information provided by the Secretariat, and in complete adherence with its obligations today, the CAP hereby informs the Permanent Council of the bequest, thereby concluding the procedural requirements, thus enabling SETI to utilize the full $175,000, thereby honoring Dr. Robert's wishes without impediment. Further, the CAP initiated deliberations in respect of creating a fund that could be named after Dr. Robert as a way of recognizing her contributions, not only monetarily, but her life's work here at the OAS. This proposal obviously requires further exploration, not only with SETI and SAF and CAP, but also with Dr. Robert's family and the principals involved. In closing, I express gratitude to Dr. Robert, her biological family, and her professional family, with the latter operating under the guidance and leadership of Executive Secretary Kim Osborne, whom Dr. Robert valued highly, thereby entrusting her with this important and significant undertaking. In true Maurice fashion, I therefore entreat us all to go placidly amidst the noise and haste. Excellencies, colleagues, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Nehmer, for the presentation of this report, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. I now ask if there are any delegations that wish to take the floor on this agenda item. If not, we do. Okay, so I see no requests for the floor. So just to wrap up, we would want today to acknowledge this great act of generosity by Miss Maurice Robert, who during her lifetime was a constant example of honesty, kindness, and perseverance at the organization. The contribution that she requested to be made in her name to the organization makes us feel humble and extremely grateful. Maurice will be remembered with the highest respect as a dedicated international civil servant. As we've said before, she will be greatly missed. Distinguished colleagues, it is now with great respect and gratitude that I now take this opportunity to bid farewell to Ambassador Frank Mora, Permanent Representative of the United States to the Organization of American States. Ambassador Mora presented his credentials to the Secretary General on January 18, 2023, and since then, he has served with distinction in his role as permanent representative. Ambassador Mora served as chair of the Committee on Inter-American Summits Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS activities at CISC until the transfer of the chair of the Summits of the Americas process from the United States to the Dominican Republic in November of 2023. Currently, Ambassador Mora serves as Vice Chair of the Permanent Council, Acting Chair of the Permanent Council's Working Group on Haiti, as well as the President of the Ambassadorial Support Group of the Columbus Memorial Library. His leadership has also extended across various important initiatives and groups within our organization, including his role as President of the Voluntary Group for the follow-up of the Inter-American Democratic Charter, Coordinator of the OAS LGBTI Core Group, and Coordinator of the Women's and Girls' Rights and Gender Equality Coordination Group. Ambassador Mora's diplomatic skills have been a true asset to this organization. His unwavering dedication to the cause of Haiti and his tireless efforts to foster consensus in our debates and decision-making processes have played a crucial role in the success of numerous initiatives. Moreover, his commitment to the defense of democracy and human rights has been a constant throughout his tenure, shaping his approach to the challenges we face as a region. Throughout his tenure, Ambassador Mora has been a tireless advocate for the values and principles that unite our hemisphere. His contributions have strengthened the hemispheric cooperation, enhanced dialogue on human rights, democracy, and hemispheric security, and furthered the OAS's mission of peace, development, gender equality, and inclusion. So on behalf of the Permanent Council and the entire organization, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for his exemplary service. And if I can take the liberty to speak in my capacity as the Ambassador of Belize, I want to also thank Ambassador Mora for the cooperation that we received. He was the Vice Chair while I was Chair. And I must say that I found him to be an excellent person to bounce ideas off, and he's always willing to discuss and to give advice. And we also appreciate that as the representative of the United States, he was very willing and encouraged us smaller countries to be heard and to take account of what we had to say and our concerns. So for that, personally, as the Ambassador of Belize, Ambassador, I thank you very much. So we thank Ambassador Mora for his invaluable contributions to the OAS and this Permanent Council. And we will always remember your dedication on behalf of your government to the shared goals of peace, human rights, democracy, hemispheric security, and development in our hemisphere. And so I now give the floor to the coordinators of the regional groups for your interventions. And we recognize the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, you will recognize that I've only just arrived at this meeting. And I did so because I could not allow Ambassador Mora to depart this assembly without speaking at this meeting. Frank Mora's physical arrival in our council at the OAS was preceded by his considerable reputation for fairness, for balance, and for careful research. These are necessary disciplines for the distinguished academic and writer that he is. His significant body of published works on Latin America and the Caribbean demonstrated that he was intimately familiar with the circumstances and challenges that confront the majority of states of this organization. Unquestionably, Ambassador Mora brought to this role the qualities that made him a successful and respected academic. From the time of his arrival, he demonstrated a willingness to listen to the concerns of others and a readiness to narrow differences so as to achieve inclusion and to eschew division. Undoubtedly, he diligently pursued the promotion and advancement of the causes of his own country, and he championed the principles for which it stands. But he was all the more remarkable because while he could have used the muscle of his country's might to attain its ends, brooking no dissent or disagreement, as some of his predecessors did, he chose the path of dialogue, discussion, and persuasion. For him, 18 votes was not enough, because a simple majority registered discontent and dissatisfaction of a significant number of others. Frank Mora wanted convinced support, born of reasonable argument and rational compromise. In this connection, Frank Mora is a rare representative of a big power. He did not ignore those who did not agree, nor was he satisfied to go along only with those who did. But, Mr. Chairman, he was much more effective because of that stance. I recall many telephone calls and WhatsApp messages from him as he tried to bridge divides and overcome obstacles to build consensus. I suspect many other delegations had similar experiences with him. Now, none of this is to suggest that he did not firmly stand up for the concerns of his own government. He did, and he did so with passion, but not as a bully. Always with reasoned discussion and fulsome explanations, he tried to build bridges and close divides. Frank Mora also showed a deep commitment to this Organization of American States. He was committed to its success and to its sustainability, and we saw many manifestations of that, including the compromises made over the budget about which we ourselves argued so fiercely and so fulsomely. And also we know that he himself used what influence he had on what he calls I think it was the third floor, or whatever floor it is that they go up to for these decisions in the State Department, but used whatever influence he could to ensure that the United States met over and above the contributions that were allocated by Congress. And that in itself is significant. So Frank Mora leaves us with our appreciation. But more than that, Mr. Chairman, Frank Mora leaves us with our respect and our thanks for the contribution he has made here. And these are words that I could not have left unspoken. So once again, Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Sanders, for that eloquent statement. We now offer the floor to the Ambassador of Peru. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, what an honor it is for me as coordinator of the Group of 10 to bid farewell to the ambassador from the United States to the OAS, Frank Mora. And I do so with deep gratitude and thanks for everything he's done since he first arrived here 2 years ago. Ambassador Mora indeed was committed really from the get-go to its objectives, to its modus operandi, and he has left his own mark in the area of multidimensional security without question. He led the discussion on issues of tremendous importance to the region. I speak, for instance, of the human trafficking and transnational organized crime in the continent, north to south. He also spoke about competitivity in the Americas in the small and medium-sized enterprises, the PYMEs, and most recently the launching of the Artificial Intelligence Project. Moving now to democracy. He also launched a voluntary group on a follow-up to the implementation of the Inter-American Democratic Declaration, and he was its first chairman. He is in this group certainly one of the leading lights. And in the area, again, of human rights, we must recognize the tireless efforts he deployed to ensure that the dialogue of this organization with states would ever be polite, but be fruitful, particularly working towards help for the most vulnerable populations. And what can I say about the group of assistance to Haiti, of which he was chair for a long time? He supported all of the initiatives, and there were many, that were channeled toward allowing that island state a return to peace and security. Now, please understand, this is by no means anything other than an attempt to give you a sketch of what Frank Mora has done for us since he got here and in the wonderful 2 years that he has allowed us to benefit from him. Dear Embajador Mora, the Group of 10, El Grupo de 10, recognizes the tremendous support that you have offered us in the institutional ambit over these 2 years. Ever respectful, ever stimulating, ever challenging, has left a mark. The United States have been recognized here in a brilliant manner. You are, no more, no less, an example to follow. This is what dialogue can allow, the kind of rapport that you have allowed here, and we offer you our very warmest wishes and indeed absolute certainty that you will go from strength to strength.
Remember you with great affection.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Costa Rica. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, distinguished permanent representatives, and dear Frank Mora and your illustrious family that we're honored to have with us today, we have today the sad honor to bid farewell to you, as we do always when someone who has meant a great deal to us over time leaves. You are leaving certainly an indelible mark on our debates on this organization, and we are here to bid you adieu with great chagrin. You have been a tireless fighter for democracy, human rights, multidimensional security, and integral development, the 4 pillars of this House. And we know how much you have done to allow us to march resolutely through dialogue down the paths that lead to fulfilling each of those goals. And so just a few minutes before this meeting, I do want to say we were so pleased to hold a small meeting to underscore the projects that the United States has financed within the OAS. And one of the most signal contributions has certainly been the ongoing multilateral approach that the U.S. has offered through its contribution through the OAS. Concrete projects, such as the one that we agreed last Friday with SEDI in the context of CD, the development of an artificial intelligence project for the Americas, is to name but one among many. The United States very, very richly contributed to strengthening the Inter-American Charter through innovative approaches. This was overdue, had a lot to do with our assisting Haiti to overcome its crisis. Hemispheric security, civil society through the chairmanship of SIX that U.S. led, a defense of young people, ensuring that those people also could be heard in the inter-American spaces. Those young people, of course, will not always be young. They will grow up and they will have a louder voice that we must hear. Costa Rica is one of the key leaders of some of these groups, and it is a pleasure for me, Dr. Mora, if I've dropped anything that I wanted to say, let me simply sum up by saying you are a leader. You are indeed a paragon of what it means to be part of a group like this and to add to the democratic goals that we have set for ourselves and are being able to reach them effectively. Above and beyond the many professional accomplishments that you brought to us, I cannot end without saying that as a distinguished university professor and your charisma, and in the wonderful way that you have of broaching difficult things, always super organized. Anybody sitting next to you can tell. We know that you have, in effect, through those different papers that you had so beautifully ordered every time, the very symbol of organization and leadership, multilateralism and consensus. But that's not all. You are a very human and humane person. You're warm, and you're a person one wishes to welcome with open arms, as you have welcomed others. To Yvette, to your other members of your family, your children who are with us, we're honored to have them with us. Bravo to you and all the best. You're leaving many, many friends here in this House of the Americas, so don't forget us. We certainly won't forget you. And as the Irish blessing says, may the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Guatemala. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, Chair and Secretary General Luis Almagro, Frank Mora, Ambassador for the United States, other ambassadors, alternates, permanent representatives. We are here today to bid adieu to Frank Mora, most respectfully and regrettably. He is stepping back from his position as representative of the United States among us. His leadership, his personality has left an indelible mark on us, and certainly, too, his commitment to the values that this House stands for. In his time with us, as we know, Frank Mora has led any number of different initiatives. It's incredibly diverse. Democracy, human rights, institutional stability, to name but these, but economic development and social progress in the region, programs that will make a difference to ensuring that sustainable development is something that can actually be attained, is something the entire hemisphere has been able to feel and to be more certain of through Frank Mora's contribution. As the chair of the Summit Committee, Civil Society, his follow-up on the progress of that summit set of meetings. All of that is something that is much, much appreciated. The working group on Haiti and so many other things that you have chaired as well. It has been key. The Inter-American Network on Competitiveness and a number of others. This is by no means an exhaustive list. LGBTIQ, Afro-descendants, and other groups have also benefited greatly from you and your input to the Special Rapporteurship on Freedom of Expression. Among your notable contributions, we know a strengthening of the Inter-American Democratic Charter through backing the input of the voluntary group on follow-up. The questions on Venezuela, need I say, as often as they were broached in the Permanent Council, were benefited greatly by your input. We know also that you made a big difference to the situation in Guatemala in 2023, defense of democracy, help of the most needed of that help. And in January 24, all of that culminated in a good result. Ambassador Mora, you know that when a country drops into dictatorship and lose its road to democracy, it's very, very hard to find a way back. But you have made that difference in the solidarity that you have shown as you reached out to countries who needed that help. And your commitment, your very firm commitment to democracy here, human rights, security, integral development, to mention but those aspects, your resolute intervention, your graciousness has made the difference time and again and led to regional stability. So thank you for your tireless defense of liberty, because it's due to that that we have seen great, great progress in those areas in this hemisphere. You've left a mark, and let me know that that mark won't simply be blown away. It's been also, might I say, a pleasure to get to know you. I hope we see you. We will certainly remember your leadership. And over the time here, many of us have learned, I couldn't begin to tell you how much from you, from your values, from your principles, from your way of broaching issues. You have been a guide and you have left a mark. Thank you, too, for your firm conviction on the values of democracy and your commitment also to Guatemala, our ability to do better and to do better soon. Thank you from Guatemala's side and from the whole of the hemisphere. What we saw last year, which was difficult, a crisis for us, you made the difference that allowed us to move toward the inauguration of Fernando Arevalo. So, as I say adieu, farewell, not goodbye, we know you will continue to be busy and make a difference elsewhere. And wherever that elsewhere may be, I certainly hope that those around you will see, too, how much you can give and will continue to give, I have no doubt. For each of the opportunities that are before you, you will make the difference. And please know that you have a country that admires you and considers you a friend in Guatemala. So come see us, stay in touch, and I can only hope the future holds wonderful things for you and your family.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Canada. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. On my behalf, and indeed on behalf of all of my delegation, I would like at this time also to express our very sincere gratitude to Ambassador Mora for his leadership, for his collaboration from day one as he came to represent the United States among us. Canada is proud to have been able to work alongside the United States under the leadership of Ambassador Mora, inasmuch as we have been able together to really go the distance on the rights of persons, democracy, and integrity in the hemisphere. Many of us have seen firsthand in the Miranda Hall upstairs the difference that Frank can do, the difference he can make. He knows how to mobilize democratic and intellectual and financial resources as few people I've ever seen. He does that, has done it, when he was chair ad interim for the OAS group on Haiti. Ambassador Mora, we will all remember, led the charge on key resolutions that made the difference to that issue, to the question of security that the UN itself was backing in Haiti. And this was indeed a beacon to our Haitian friends throughout the hemisphere.
Has been a steadfast partner and ally on the promotion of gender equality and the rights of women and girls, including as coordinator of the Articulation for the Rights of Women and Girls and Gender Equality, as you mentioned, and co-hosting with Canada a workshop this past International Women's Day on building allyship to advance gender equality. We are grateful for his leadership and that of his team in the LGBTI+ core group for advancing and promoting the rights of LGBTI+ persons in the hemisphere. Through his innovative projects, such as the first ever celebration of Pride at the OAS, to various discussions he facilitated with CSOs and member states, he was able to highlight the ongoing discrimination against these people and that community, and highlight also the challenges to preserving hard-won rights here in the region. Ambassador Mora's work embodied his deep care and commitment to the success and longevity of the Organization of American States. He exercised great leadership, as noted by the distinguished representative of Antigua and Barbuda, in the last budget negotiations to help us all agree on a more rational real estate footprint that will ensure the OAS is more suitable, sustainable, and efficient in the future. Ambassador Mora's personal commitment to the goals of the OAS, his determination to make a positive impact, and his deep knowledge, respect, and appreciation for this region have made it all the more rewarding for my delegation to work with our American friends and colleagues on many, many other issues that I will not list here today, but could go on for a long time. Ambassador Mora's steadfast friendship and commitment to overcome the daunting challenges we all face have and will continue to inspire me, and I'm quite sure many others here in this room and amongst the delegations represented, to give the best of ourselves to realize the full potential of this great organization now and into the future. So, Frank, I'd like to say thank you. I wish you all the best in the next phase of your already very distinguished and substantial career. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. I believe next should be the Bahamas? No? Okay, it's a mistake, yeah. So we offer the floor now to the delegation of the Dominican Republic. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. The delegation of the Dominican Republic would like to join those who have spoken before us in acknowledging and recognizing the tremendous work of U.S. Ambassador Francisco Mora to this organization. During his time here, Ambassador Mora has proven to be a tireless defender of the fundamental and core principles that guide our organizations, particularly democratic values. We have borne witness to his commitment to strengthening friendship and cooperation between and among our countries. I'd like to highlight particularly his tireless efforts in promoting economic development and the construction of democratic institutions that are effective through regional cooperation, as well as strengthening constructive spaces for dialogue. As the chair of the working group on the Inter-American Democratic Charter and his group, the working group on Haiti, his leadership has been crucial to the promotion and defense of the democratic values that we all share. As the national coordinator for summits in the United States, he played a crucial role in guiding and strengthening and orienting the different initiatives for development and integration across the region. We are particularly grateful, Ambassador Mora, for the support that you've offered us in the Dominican Republic in taking over the summit process. We really appreciate the collaboration support that you've offered to us. We'd also like to acknowledge you for your ongoing work, your constant commitment and futtered commitment to peace, human rights, and the strengthening of democracy. You are an example of leadership, and we are confident that wherever you may go, you will continue to help ensure that our region is more equitable, fair, democratic. We wish you the best of success always. I'd like to take advantage, Mr. Chair, of the opportunity to encourage the member states of the Permanent Council and the Secretary General to join us also in expressing happy holidays to all and a joyous 2025 to all. Thank you.
Now for the floor to the delegation of El Salvador. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of El Salvador would like to express to the permanent representative of the United States, Ambassador Francisco Mora, our gratitude for his efforts in strengthening this organization over the course of the last 2 years. Since January 2023, the date when he presented his credentials, Ambassador Mora has brought to the forefront all of his leadership experience, capabilities, and skills to the organization and the community of nations that we all form part of. Without delving into detail into his efforts, he has tirelessly worked on numerous initiatives in favor of democracy, human rights, development, and security, which reflect the commitment, his personal commitment and that of his country to the inter-American agenda. We've all borne witness to his spirit and to that commitment. He also has supported the Colon Library and the Art Museum of the Americas that, of course, show his support for the academic and cultural identity of all of our peoples, strengthening our personal and diplomatic ties. Ambassador Mora, we appreciate very much what you said when you presented your credentials, saying that in 1961, President Kennedy highlighted to a speech to the Permanent Council that it is our responsibility to bring life into the organization, ensure that it meets its mission, and not fail to ensure the creation of new organizations when we have one that has matured over time, end quote. And of course, we continue to support that dream that all individuals across the hemisphere must work strongly and warmly together to ensure that we can meet all and comply with all of our values of having a more peaceful and prosperous Americas. I appreciate how Ambassador then and now has brought again to the forefront these words and made them his in terms of bringing them to fruition to the best of his ability. The permanent mission of El Salvador appreciates his willingness and his skills in terms of dialogues and his ability to build bridges even in the most challenging of circumstances. As colleagues and friends, we recognize your great nature as a tremendous person and the mark that you have made on the region and on us all. We wish you the best of success in your new professional responsibilities and in your family life. Thank you very much.
I offer the floor to the delegation of Mexico. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación despide con afecto al embajador Francisco Mora, representante permanente de Estados Unidos, a quien reconocemos
Francisco Mora for his ongoing commitment to dialogue and mutual respect, which are, of course, fundamental for the work of this organization and the development of effective multilateralism. Mexico and the United States share not just a geography and history and a border that's over 3,000 kilometers long, but also strong human and economic ties, which continue to strengthen our bilateral relationships and that are part of the indelible and permanent relations between our countries. Along with Canada, we form part of the strongest economic regions in the world, representing approximately 30% of the global economy. Ambassador Mora, we wish you the best of success in your future projects, and we reiterate our commitment to continuing to strengthen the ties between our countries based on trust, dialogue, mutual respect and shared responsibility. Dear Frank, we wish you the very best. It has been wonderful working closely with you constructively, and I do wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
We now offer the floor to Colombia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to everyone. Ambassador Francisco Mora, alternate and permanent representatives, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor at this time to be able to take the floor at this Permanent Council meeting to recognize a good friend, a true colleague, a friend personally and of Colombia, Ambassador Francisco Mora, permanent representative of the United States to the OAS. I do send warm, cordial greetings to your family, your wife, Yvette, your children who honor us with their presence. Please know that you should be truly proud of the person who has represented the United States in this organization over the course of the past 2 years. Ambassador Mora, your steadfast commitment to the values of democracy and human rights has left a very deep mark on this organization. As a poet Machado once said, se hace camino al andar. That is to say, the pathway is forged by walking down it. And you have truly created not just a pathway, but a veritable highway through your work. Your research, your efforts in academia and in practice are truly things that enrich our region. The work that you've done, even when we had the opportunities to spend time together, you have always put your shoulder to the work that needed to be done, even as others have noted, in the most troubling and challenging of times. This is something that we will never forget. Let me take advantage of the opportunity to thank you on behalf of the administration of President Gustavo Petro for your invaluable support to our countries, particularly in terms of peace building. I'd like to highlight your ongoing support for the MAP OAS, the Peace Support Mission, and I particularly the total support that you've made for peace in Colombia and your active participation in the forum on the role of the OAS and the international community in building peace in Colombia, where you have supported our agenda wholeheartedly through the visits that you made to Colombia during your term in helping to ensure support and the success of the final report on the Truth Committee, on Truth Commission, on monitoring contexts of conflict and social conflictiveness, the support for the working dialogues, and the opportunities for conversation and participation with our groups that the government has taken on, as well as the oversight and monitoring and verification mechanisms and the bilateral effort. Also, the work in the voluntary group and the follow-on to the Democratic Charter has been of the utmost importance. Everything we can say here falls short of the true value of your contributions, as the permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda has just said. We also thank you for your work in 2024 in the nucleus and the LGBTQI core group, and the continuity that you've brought to the work that we started in Colombia 2023. This effort that you've unfurled has been very important in making strides to the promotion and protection of people in diversity across the region. We'd like to highlight the recent launch of the guidelines for security forces, which is key to ensuring that people or that there's full respect for the human rights and the fundamental underlying rights and guarantees and assurances of all LGBTIQ individuals at any time they may come into contact with law enforcement, among other organizations. I'd also like to highlight your role in the historic reception offered in the Hall of the Americas, where for the first time in the history of this important building, the colors of the LGBTIQ flag were placed in the hall. Our colleague from Antigua and Barbuda has also remembered and reminded us all of the source of your willingness to continue to listen and to work and strengthen the organization in this regard in terms of sexual diversity and gender diversity, among so many other topics. You are an outstanding diplomat and one who has helped to ensure that this organization and the hemisphere is fairer, more inclusive, and has greater solidarity. On behalf of Colombia and our delegation, we do wish you the very best of success in your upcoming challenges, and we are very certain that this will just be a temporary farewell and not a final one as we say goodbye for now. Thank you.
Of Haiti. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman, Ambassador Mora, Ambassador Mora's family, in this noble profession, we know that saying au revoir is as inevitable as saying hello. That day comes, but it comes especially with a wrench when one bids adieu to someone whose qualities clearly transcend that person's diplomatic status. Your work among us has left an indelible footprint among us all. You were exemplary, and you were ever dignified. And you have shown at all moments a very deep sense of responsibility and care in what you were doing. What a wonderful, wonderful representation of your country. And surely you have strengthened the credibility and the pertinence of the Organization of American States in this hemisphere through your presence among us. Frank Mora, dear friend, let me say that your central and determinative role in the group that this organization put together to work on Haiti has certainly left an indelible mark. I know too well how complex and how intractable that work has to be. But what you did, without flinching, made the difference. That group made the difference, particularly after the depart of Ambassador Spencer. Your dedication, your unwavering determination to go forward, your presence, ever-presence at the meetings we held, made the difference. And the points that were finally adopted at the end and the resolution that was adopted on the 13th of November last, just a little over a year ago, encouraged the United Nations to change its support on the security mission in the OAS to become a mission for peace. You had a tremendous hand in that. And you made the difference not only for Haiti itself, but you strengthened the spirit of solidarity and cooperation that must ever persist and be patent in this organization. Through your leadership of that working group, through exemplary leadership, I might add, you allowed us to move forward, eyes open, and absolutely determined to face the problems, whatever they may have been. You are, without question, a dear friend of Haiti's. And your support for this ongoing search for constructive ways forward will remain with us. I know I can speak for everybody here, and I know I can speak for my own beloved country, Haiti. The excellence that has marked your presence among us will leave a huge void, but also, and I hasten to add this, a precious heritage through your leadership, through your personality. So it remains simply to wish you, as the saying goes, but from the heart, the very best. And I certainly hope we meet again, because as you know, friendships that are forged within this hall are certainly beyond borders and beyond time. And so, au revoir, à bientôt, hasta pronto, dear Ambassador Mora.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Panama. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, colleagues, all, distinguished friend, Ambassador Mora, your distinguished wife and family, I give you my greetings and my deepest respect. With the permission of the Regional Coordination, I'd like to share some remarks on behalf of the delegation of the Republic of Panama to bid farewell to the Permanent Representative of the United States to the OAS, Ambassador Francisco Mora. Of course, saying farewell is always bittersweet. We must recognize your work and commitment to this organization. During this, we have seen your commitment to the fundamental principles of the OAS recognized in your tireless efforts on behalf of democracy across our region, promotion of human rights, contributing to multidimensional security, and moving forward in the area of integral development with equity and equality. The historic relationship between Panama and the United States has also been reflected in the numerous efforts that have been undertaken in gender equality, the development of the America's competitive exchange with Panama earlier this year, and efforts to ensure democratic systems throughout the region, as well as the creation of the voluntary group for the follow-on to the Inter-American Democratic Charter, which you led as the first chair, including efforts for an initiative that seeks to bring to greater fruition, greater benefits in democratic principles within our sphere and purview. Ambassador Mora, I'd like to highlight your professionalism, your leadership, and the key work that you've done over the course of your term of 2 years here at the organization. It has been an honor to work with you side by side. You represent not only your nation, but in you we have seen as an ambassador the skills of a tremendous diplomat who can hold strong positions, but is also open to maintaining ongoing dialogue and reaching agreement. Your warmth as a person, your friendliness, and your approach not only with the permanent representatives, but with all of the working teams has made everyone's work easier and has made everything flow more smoothly. I'd like to, on behalf of our delegation and our president, Jose Raul Molino, and our foreign minister, Javier Martinez Sancha, recognize your dedication, collaboration, and we wish you the best of success. The doors of Panama are always open to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Jamaica. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Jamaican delegation and my ambassador, it is both an honor and a pleasure to pay tribute to Ambassador Francisco Mora, an outstanding educator, the consummate diplomat, and public servant. He's a man for all seasons. His astute leadership in different committees at the OAS, underpinned by the 4 pillars of the OAS, the Summit of the Americas process, and more recently, the 9th Summit of the Americas, which resulted in the adoption of 4 political declarations: digital transformation, health, climate, energy, and democracy, critical areas aimed at building back more resilient in a post-unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic period. Ambassador Mora is well accomplished. Notwithstanding his accomplishments, which are too many to mention here this afternoon, it is personal attributes and dedication to serving his country which will leave a lasting impact. He is humble, has a congenial personality, and has the ability to remain calm during passionate exchanges, which promotes professionalism and meaningful exchanges and make it easy to work with him. These qualities is so much easier for us at the OAS, and makes it much easier for us to arrive at a consensus while respecting our differences of positions. We will recall the meeting he had with different groups and delegations just before the convening of the 55th special regular session of the General Assembly to approve the 2025 budget, and that different delegations had contending views. During the meeting, Ambassador Moore exemplified leadership, while we had frank and open discussions, no pun intended with the word frank. Those meetings helped us to have an even deeper understanding of the proposals for the real estate portfolio of the organization, among others. His representation of the United States is exemplary, and his presence at the OAS will be missed. I, however, remain optimistic that our paths will continue to cross. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Jamaican delegation to state how grateful we are to have worked with you, and please accept our best wishes for your personal and professional well-being and every success in your future endeavors. I thank you.
Thank you. We now offer the floor to the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ambassadors, permanent observers, alternate representatives, and staff of the OAS General Secretariat, and other guests who are here and looking at this meeting online. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, please permit my delegation to join in wishing a farewell to His Excellency Francisco Omora, Ambassador, Permanent Representative of the United States. Mr. Chairman, a lot has been said about this distinguished son of the Americas. St. Vincent and the Grenadines will not repeat what numerous delegations have already said. However, St. Vincent and the Grenadines wishes you, Ambassador Mora, the very best in your future endeavors. Ambassador Gilchrist, who is out of state, sends her regards. Ambassador Mora, it was a pleasure working with you over the years. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is grateful for the cooperation you provided to the Leo Fund under your leadership. Ambassador, a very important point must be made that it was because of your push or your leadership which led to the contract to A&M, which resulted in this report for a comprehensive review of this organization. So kudos to you, Ambassador. Ambassador, my delegation appreciates the constructive engagements you've had during your tour of duty with the CARICOM group. I personally bear witness to that and do appreciate the constructive engagement you've had with not just St. Vincent and the Grenadines delegation, but with all CARICOM delegations. Mr. Chairman, in diplomacy, welcomes and farewells are the norm. However, for us as humans, it is always difficult to say goodbye. Ambassador Moore, we may be saying farewell to you today, but hopefully we will meet again. Also, in diplomacy, it is a small world and a revolving door. Bon voyage, Ambassador Moore. God bless, and take a bow, sir, because you certainly represented the United States very well, and you should be proud of that. Farewell, Mr. Ambassador, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Honduras. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Esteemed Ambassador Mora, the permanent delegation of Honduras can only echo the sentiments that have been expressed by every single delegation that has spoken before me. Ambassador Humberto Quesada, alas, is on a trip for Honduras, but he has asked me most particularly to mention how very sorry he is not to be here to say personally all the best and thank you so much. He recognizes and does so with deep affection and appreciation everything that you have added to our discussions and the upholding the principles of this organization. We are certainly always, always willing to continue our cooperation. Thank you.
Delegation of Grenada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Excellencies, the Permanent Mission of Grenada takes the floor to join others in recognizing Ambassador Mora for his service and contributions in representing the United States at the Organization of American States. Over his tenure, Ambassador Mora has demonstrated exceptional qualities as an astute diplomat, an exemplary leader, leaving his mark on this organization. One of the hallmarks of Ambassador Mora's tenure has been his approachability and willingness to share his insights. Our delegation is fortunate to sit next to the Permanent Mission of the United States, and we can personally attest to the warmth and collegiality he brings to every interaction. Ambassador Mora has represented his country with distinction, championing the principles that underpin the OAS, principles of democracy, human rights, development, and security. His diplomatic acumen is evident in his ability to navigate complex issues with clarity and a collaborative spirit. Under his representation, the United States has played a pivotal role in advancing key initiatives and fostering consensus on challenging matters. Ambassador Mora's interventions and discussions have been marked by depth and a genuine commitment to dialogue. Ambassador Mora's leadership as chair of the voluntary group for follow-up to the Inter-American Democratic Charter is an example of his dedication to the core values of this institution. In this capacity, he has provided clear direction and fostered meaningful discussion on the state of democracy in our region, encouraging transparency, accountability, and collective action. Ambassador Mora, as you prepare to embark on the next chapter of your journey, we extend our best wishes for your future endeavors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Bahamas. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, all. Greetings and warm welcome to Mrs. Moore and the family of Ambassador Frank Moore. I had to run the risk of speaking at the tail end of all of these remarks, and hearing the culmination of these great orators, I am now feeling compelled to nominate you for the Nobel Prize. On behalf of the Bahamas and the Permanent Mission of the Bahamas to the Organization of American States, it is a great honor to extend our sincere gratitude to Ambassador Professor Francisco Mora as he concludes his tenure as the representative of the United States to the OAS. Ambassador Mora's leadership, insight, and unwavering commitment to the principles of democracy, human rights, and multilateralism have left a lasting impact on this institution. His diplomatic acumen and ability to foster dialogue during critical moments have been instrumental in advancing our shared goals for the hemisphere. Throughout his tenure, Ambassador Mora demonstrated a deep appreciation for the unique perspectives of small states, ensuring that our voices were not only heard, but valued. His role in stewardship of the Haiti Working Group is emblematic of navigating geopolitical and institutional terrain that is not built for the weak in heart, nor the weak in spirit. Ambassador Mora has always taken a thoughtful approach to consensus building, and his respect for the diversity of views among member states have set a high standard for diplomatic engagement at the OAS. Frank, as you embark on your next chapter, we recognize and commend your legacy of service and your dedication to the ideals of the Inter-American system. We thank you for your steadfast support and your patience, particularly in the heat of the debate. You've always remained unfazed and unwavering. Frank, for your presence will be missed, but your contributions shall endure. I have surety more surety than others in this room that we will meet again, because, Frank, you will undoubtedly leave the rigors and stress of these halls for the tranquil and serenity of the beaches in Harbor Island in the Bahamas. We will miss you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Secretary General Almagro, Assistant Secretary General Mendez. I recognize Ambassador Mora and his dear family, and he will be visiting St. Kitts, as we will be finding out. It has been a privilege to witness and work alongside you, Ambassador Mora, during your tenure as permanent representative of the United States to the Organization of American States. Your calm and steady manner, paired with your pleasant demeanor and unwavering professionalism, leave an indelible mark on all who have had the honor of engaging with you. This delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis fondly recalls your promise to visit our islands. I'm very happy that your wife and your family are here to hear this, just in case they were unaware. And I assure you that the break you so richly deserve awaits you on our tranquil and calming shores. There you will find not only rest and beauty, but also a warm welcome befitting a friend. On behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, I commend you for the invaluable contributions you have made to strengthening the bridges between our countries and for your unwavering commitment to fostering cooperation around the hemispheric table. Your legacy of service and dedication will continue to inspire us all. The delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis wishes you every success in your future endeavors, both personally and professionally, and we trust that this next chapter will be as fulfilling as it is well-deserved. Ambassador, I hope that our paths will cross again sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Suriname. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be very brief because a lot have been said, but the OAS is made up of member states, but these member states are represented by human beings. And I just want to thank Frank for being a wonderful professional and a warm personality. And I think that the OAS, we all have benefited from that. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would now like to offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of Spain. Ambassador, please proceed.
I thank you. Dear Ambassador Mora, dear Frank, well, the time has come to say farewell, and the ambassador for Colombia was just remembering that wonderful Spanish poet who died in exile under the terrible dictatorship of Franco. And one of the great phrases is, todo pasa y todo queda. Everything passes and everything remains. We know, each one of us, when we serve at an organization, that it won't be forever. There's a rotation. This is the way it is in the diplomatic world. But today is a day, which we have seen clearly around this table, that when some leave, the departure is felt more keenly than perhaps in other circumstances. And you surely, Frank Mora, as you have headed the United States delegation before the Organization of American States, have really left a stellar memory, and I'm so glad your family is here to witness for themselves how keenly you will be missed. And we understand that nobody can go it alone, and I'm sure you have been backstopped by your lovely family. And indeed, going back to that wonderful verse of Antonio Machado, you can be proud of everything you are leaving us, everything you are bequeathing to us. Just a few minutes ago, we were meeting in the Miranda room upstairs just to review all of the actions that have been able to be carried out because of the leadership and the support of the United States Permanent Representative in the OAS. This is tremendous work, the work on behalf of democracy, human rights, peace, the rights of women, the rights of the LGBTIQ+, the rights of those most vulnerable among us. All of that work was done with dialogue and with solvency, because we know very much how much the United States contributes to ensuring that multilateralism isn't just talk, but that it makes a difference. But as a friend, as a human being, and as a member of your beautiful family, all the best. You'll be missed.
So now we offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of France. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I could hardly sit here and fail to speak on behalf of Frank Mora. I'm just sorry I only was able to work with him a few months, but I certainly appreciate the very warm welcome he afforded me and the always open and frank dialogue that we had. And after all, France is but an observer mission here. But I always felt a very full and frank dialogue, and I wish you and I wish your family that on your way to the Bahamas, you go by way of Paris. Why not? Till next time, dear Frank Mora.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's now my pleasure to offer the floor to the Secretary General. Excellency, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. My dear friend, Frank, and I speak through you to your lovely family that we are so pleased to have among us today at this always inevitable moment in the life of a diplomat. When you arrived and presented your credentials just a few years ago, it seems like yesterday, you certainly spoke of your commitment to strengthen multilateralism and to ensure that the role that the OAS has played in the Americas will continue to be fruitful. And you did so as the consummate professional that you are known to be, and with tremendous capacity for management, a keen eye, but also, I believe everyone has felt it and expressed it today, with a personal sense of conviction for what you're doing. We've known each other for a while. At the time, you were at the Department of Defense. That was when I was ambassador. Then I met you at the FIU. And then you kept us waiting for a little while. But as all things that one has to await generally turn out to be, it was worth the wait. And over these 2 years, what a joy it has been to see your tremendous diplomatic prowess, your unequaled capacity for dialogue. All of that has been noted around the table, but it's always been a joy to work with you. That's the point. And not just because, as if that were nothing, because we ended up with a pretty good result at the end of the day. It was something that made a difference to the institutions. It was something that made a difference to wherever the OAS could reach out through the hemisphere, to each individual in the hemisphere, I dare say, and the governments. That's not easy in diplomacy. And I'll say this, of course, when one works with you, you can leave your ego aside. And you set a very high bar there. It isn't always the case that all of us can be as, and I mean this in the sincerest way, the humblest, the simplest way, which you have no difficulty in assuming and in carrying out because it's who you are. And it leads to the best possible results. You are equally a person with enormous capacity for dialogue. You have never shirked from engaging in a very tough debate and the cut and thrust of what diplomacy means sometimes, and that's who we are here. And your capacity for action. You were always focused on making the difference. It wasn't just a flowing and flowery speech. I mean, if I ever am going to talk with you and have talked to you about X, Y, I know that the conversation is surely not going to remain at that lovely diplomatic surface. We're going to get down to business pretty soon, and so we did. And you know what? It has made a great difference to our work. Even in the midst of the most complex negotiations, who you are, your personal gifts has made the difference. And you are, as everybody here has stated, very, very able to strike up a friendship, at a minimum, a cordial relationship with everybody. I dare say everybody in this room. And you have also carried out, I don't know how long the tasks would take. I've listened to what was said in the Miranda room. I've listened to what is said here. I could take one list that we used upstairs and take the one down here. What I said in the Miranda room, I have said here. Because it's the results you have obtained through your presence among us that have made the difference. The promotion and defense of democracy, of human rights, a recognition of what dictatorships have done to this hemisphere, and many of our ancestors remember that and will never forget it. You, too, have made the difference in recalling that and in knowing it and in working with it and above it. The missions of electoral observation, the MOEs, the good offices missions, observation missions that you've been a part of, the list goes on and on. But let me also add something that I think has made a big difference and that distinguishes your presence and your legacy to us. You are an academician. You know, not everybody can transfer his or her experience in the academic world to the practical diplomatic world. With you, there's a symbiosis. With you, there is no stark difference. There's a fluid and flowing communication between the two. You're a bright guy, and you do so with such ease. So thank you for that. Thank you for your unstinting support to all of our missions. And so, my dear Frank, you know, knowers and lovers of baseball knows that the role of the catcher ain't easy and has to be somebody who can move quick and make sure that the ball isn't lost. You don't want to flub it. And the person has to have a very quick eye and a capacity for leadership. You see where I'm going? We all, I'm very sure, see where I'm going. Because let's not forget that the pitcher, you know, is the only one who sees from his angle, but the catcher sees the entire view. That's why many of the managers of the great and big leagues have been catchers, no surprise. Well, a lot of the catcher is in you. And knowing how long we've known each other, chances are our paths will cross again. Thank you, dear Frank.
Thank you, Excellency. Colleagues, before I offer the floor to Ambassador Mora, I am obliged to also recognize and welcome his wife, Yvette, and his family who are here today. And I'm sure they're very proud to hear how much we respect, admire Frank, and I think they're very excited to know that Frank will be embarking on a tour of all the Americas, and I hear even France, but yeah, we are looking forward to that tour, Frank. So with that, I'll offer the floor to Ambassador Mora. Frank, please proceed.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, and to colleagues and of course, all friends. Needless to say, I'm beyond moved and grateful for the much too generous comments that you have made this afternoon. But more importantly, I'm grateful for your friendships, your your leadership, and commitment to this organization. I have learned and benefited greatly from all of you during my brief time as U.S. Permanent Representative. Colleagues, as you know, and as Ambassador Sanders noted, I'm not a career diplomat. At times I have used that as an excuse to be undiplomatic. But I mention this fact for a larger reason as well. Unlike most of you, I've not spent much time in public service, stint in the Pentagon and of course here, working for my government, working on the inside of the system. I am first and foremost an academic, someone who has spent most of my career looking in from outside, a student of the inter-American system, a critical observer rather than a direct participant. My years studying and analyzing the history and politics of our hemisphere filled me with the conviction that this institution, the Organization of American States, plays an important role in our hemisphere. It is because of that conviction that I was interested in serving in this position in the first place. And I take a moment here to express my deep gratefulness to President Biden for giving me this honor to serve in this capacity. My 2 years in this chair have only strengthened that conviction. Today, I would say not only does this institution play an important role, but an essential role, indeed an indispensable role, if nations of this hemisphere are to fulfill our aspirations. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this organization is more important now, today, than it has been in decades, precisely because of the challenges the hemisphere faces. And I will go further, that the OAS must not only exist, it must grow stronger, become more effective, more active, more creative, if democracy, development, security, and the promotion of human rights are to prevail in our hemisphere for the rest of this century. These four pillars, democracy, development, security, and human rights, are not just the organizational structure of this organization. They are the values that we, the member states, bring to this organization, and they are the foundation of a stable, just, and inclusive hemisphere. And this is true not just for the people of our countries, but also for the people of Cuba and the people of Nicaragua and of Venezuela, even though they do not have a representative sitting in this room today. Yet we know that these principles require constant effort to uphold. They must be defended, strengthened, and expanded every day through our shared commitment and collective action. It is only through this joint effort that we can address the complex challenges and seek the opportunities of today. I regret that I've only had 2 years to be a direct participant in the inter-American system, but in these 2 years, we, all of us, have accomplished a great deal. Colleagues, the public often talks about what we here in the Permanent Council do or don't do. But as you know, the real work this organization and of the inter-American system gets done in the Secretariat and at semi-autonomous entities of the system by an incredible collection of professionals that we should all be proud and grateful for their extraordinary work they do day in and day out, at times in very challenging circumstances, on behalf of the peoples of the Americas. It has been an honor to work with all of you in the Secretariat. Colleagues, we must not only continue, in fact, I think we should continue to expand our financial and our political support, but also think about how we become advocates and hemispheric promoters of the work that this organization does. Colleagues, as you know, the region faces multiple complex challenges that we have discussed many times in this forum, such as climate change, citizen security, and the threat from organized crime and corruption, high levels of inequality and poverty, and the social marginalization of undeserved communities. But in my mind, if we do not recommit to our common value of staying true to democracy, to human rights, and the rule of law, these other challenges will be much more difficult to address. Without democracy, development, the environment, and security become that much harder to address. And of course, vice versa. If we are not up to the task of demonstrating to the increasingly distrustful and disaffected citizenry that democracy can deliver, then we will be caught in a vicious cycle that with time becomes increasingly difficult to pull out from. But colleagues, we have the tools here at the OAS, and hopefully the political will to help restore faith in our democratic institutions. The will, the shared commitment to push us toward a virtuous circle characterized by a more secure, peaceful, and prosperous Americas. Don't let the incredible work we did in Guatemala be the exception, but rather the rule in our collective effort to defend democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. This is our responsibility. Let me take a minute, Mr. Chair, during this discussion of democracy. I'd like to thank Secretary General Magro, whose leadership has left an indelible mark on this organization and on our hemisphere. Secretary General, your principled defense of human rights and of democracy, especially in the face of authoritarian regimes in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, has ensured that the OAS remains a steadfast advocate for those whose voices are too often silenced. Your vision of more rights for more people has brought to life through initiatives like the Secretary for Access to Rights and Equity, which has expanded the organization's capacity to address the needs of marginalized communities across the Americas. Your efforts to engage the Venice Commission on critical issues such as presidential re-election and the electoral framework in Haiti have also reinforced the OAS's role as a guardian of democratic norms and the rule of law. Thank you, sir, for your dedication and your vision, which will continue to inform the inter-American system and the people it serves. It has been said by all of you, most of you, in talking about the voluntary group for the follow-up of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. That grew of our, I think, great respect for the Inter-American Democratic Charter, but also my belief that challenges to democracy in the hemisphere remained and have evolved since our predecessors negotiated and signed that charter 24 years ago. If we are to promote and defend democracy in the Americas, as the charter calls us to do, then our approaches and our actions must evolve as well. The voluntary group provides a vital platform for member states to engage in proactive dialogue and collaboration to counter democratic erosion. Now, under the very capable leadership of our colleague from Chile, the group is generating and promoting a variety of ways to strengthen and develop the capabilities of this organization for the benefit of civic and democratic institutions in our countries. And I encourage you all to continue this work. When we first began discussing the establishment of the group to strengthen the Inter-American Democratic Charter, I said that the U.S. insisted, not from some altruistic reason or effort to impose. In fact, it was motivated by self-interest. Democracies are fragile everywhere, including in my own country. If democracy is ever threatened in the U.S., my hope is that this organization, as it has done many times before in other countries, use the tools like the Inter-American Democratic Charter in defense of democracy and the rule of law. I was also pleased to participate in the excellent work of CD and SETI as they work tirelessly to address the development challenges of the region. I've had the opportunity of seeing firsthand how impactful the work of the OAS is, with economic development efforts that go from setting the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan for 2023-2030 to implementation of programs and initiatives with a proven record of facilitating linkages and fostering economic partnerships and development, such as the America Competitiveness Exchange, and the deployment in the region of the Small Business Development Centers model. Through my roles as chair of the LGBTI+ core group and the coordinator of the Gender Articulation Group, I saw how inclusion and equity can and must strengthen the foundations of democracy. Initiatives such as the first ever OAS Pride celebration and resolutions to enhance women's participation in decision-making highlight the OAS's ability to lead by example in ensuring that no one is left behind. And now a word, my friends, about the budget. We have also, in my 2 years here, worked to strengthen this institution financially. By increasing its budget, yes, but also by making difficult decisions, take on structural and organizational reforms that will put the organization on a sustainable path for the future. Much of this work remains. I urge you all not to consider not only to consider the external review or the budget resolution that we passed, not as a starting point or not as an end point, but from the very beginning. I truly believe we are at a critical point where we're facing, yes, some political headwinds, but I would argue we have significant opportunities, a window, if you will, to double down on multilateral diplomacy at international institutions by committing ourselves to the process of reform. And as importantly, telling and showing the people of the hemisphere that without a strong and vibrant OAS, we would be much worse for it. Well, I cannot continue this work with you as a direct participant. You can bet that I will be paying close attention as I return to my role as an outside observer academic. Now, a few words of thanks. As with all of you, nothing would have been possible without the love and patience of our family. I'm joined today by my wife, Yvette, and my children, Daniela and Frankie. Their unwavering support and inspiration propelled all of my efforts here to do the very best in contributing, however small, to making our hemisphere more peaceful and just for them and for all our families. A good friend once told me, uno predica por su ejemplo. You preach by your example. I hope I have done that. To the US OAS team, it has been a pleasure and the honor of my life to serve with you. Thank you all for every day of service that you have done to our country, the OAS, and the hemisphere. I will be forever grateful to this team, led by the Deputy Permanent Representative, Thomas Hastings, an exceptional diplomat and leader from whom I learned so much, as I did from the rest of the team. Thank you all so much. I will definitely miss you. Chair, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the many OAS staff members whose work often goes unseen, but is essential to what we accomplish here day in and day out. From the translators and the interpreters, who bridge your linguistic divides, to the conference support, press, and protocol teams who make our gathering possible. Your professionalism, your commitment ensures that we can manage meaningfully and effectively the important work that we do here. You make this organization run, and I am profoundly grateful to all of you. Special thanks to Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez and his team for making sure that we stay within our bounds, but at the same time reach for as ambitious programs and organization that we can. Nestor, thank you so much. As Jimmy Carter, a lifelong advocate and who I have cited often in my remarks, has said, and I quote, "The bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. This institution's strength lies in its ability to bring us together, even in times of division and even of polarization, to address our shared challenges and to pursue our common goals. As I have been reminded, while our titles may include permanent representative, none of us are truly permanent. I leave with the confidence that the OAS will continue to rise to the challenges before it, guided by the commitment of its member states and the resilience of its people. Thank you very, very much.
Ambassador, thank you so much for those profound and inspiring words. On behalf of the OAS, I think it's going to be truly my honor to present you with a token of our appreciation. And so I invite you to come up and allow me that honor. Colleagues, we will now move to the last item on our agenda, which is other business. And I see we have a request for the floor from Costa Rica. And so I offer the floor to the Ambassador of Costa Rica. Ambassador, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. My delegation is taking the floor in the context of the commemoration of International Migrant Day, which is recognized on December 18th each year. Costa Rica, as the chair of the CD Migration Matters Committee, joins the international call to recognize and to encourage all the rights of individuals in terms of human mobility. In an interconnected world in which migration is a reality across borders, it's important to remember that each migrant is an individual who merits respect and protection. Costa Rica meets its requirements and the obligations and the principles of inclusion and solidarity in the realm of human rights, and therefore will continue to work regionally and internationally to ensure that the human rights of individuals who are migrants continue to be respected and protected independent of their origin or their status. This commemoration invites us to reflect on the challenges of individuals who are migrants, as well as their valuable contributions. Therefore, we reaffirm our commitment to the policies of migration policies that encourage integration, equity, and access to a dignified life for all, as well as more humane stewardship and coordinated efforts in terms of the processes and the migration mechanisms that seek to benefit all communities, those of origin, transit, and destination. Chair, before returning the floor to you, I'd also like to take advantage of this final session of the year of the Permanent Council that is chaired by you. So we'd also like to take advantage of this opportunity to express our deep gratitude to you for your hard work. You have certainly met your work plan. We congratulate you as well as your tremendous team to the permanent mission of Belize to the OAS, and a tremendous example of multitasking and capability of all of you. Let me also congratulate all the representatives of the Secretariat who have supported you in this important work during the quarter. I also would like to underscore the words of Ambassador Mayelin Cordero of the Dominican Republic to wish everyone happy holidays, and may you all spend some time of joy and happiness and peace with all of your loved ones, and hopefully next year we will come together with redoubled and renewed energies, working to strengthen our hemisphere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Colleagues, I see no further requests for the floor. And so, as we conclude this final regular meeting of the year and my tenure as chair of the Permanent Council, allow me a few moments to reflect on our collective achievements and also to express my deepest gratitude for all of your cooperation and support. From October 1st to today, we have addressed some of the most pressing challenges facing our hemisphere with a clear focus on human rights, democracy, hemispheric security, international law, and regional solidarity. I think a key milestone has been the preparation for the special session of the General Assembly to approve the program budget for 2025, which, as Ambassador Mora rightly said, has ensured that the OAS remains equipped with the necessary resources to fulfill its role in effectively addressing the region's needs. And this achievement is due in large part to the hard work of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, CAAP, whose contributions were indispensable, and for that we thank Ambassador Nema, especially for the hard work in delivering on that. Thank you. In some ways, I often get congratulated for the work that is done, and I try to explain that many times I just stand at the wheel and look good. There are people that's really doing the work, such as Ambassador Nema and others, who I want to thank today. Because we also prepared and approved the Permanent Council resolution for the upcoming elections of the Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General, ensuring a transparent process in choosing the leaders of the OAS for the next 5 years. Another central focus, and again we thank Ambassador Mora for leading on this, was our attention to the crisis in Haiti, which continues, but we continue to reaffirm our commitment to the international community's engagement to restore peace and stability in Haiti. And of course, we endorsed Haiti's request for a UN peacekeeping operation and highlighted the importance of strengthening democratic institutions and human rights protections in that country. In addition, we commemorated significant milestones in the Inter-American human rights system and observed International Human Rights Day, reaffirming our commitment to protecting the civil, political, and economic rights of all individuals. Even as we hear today, Canada brought forward a special set for our LGBTI community. So we continue to pay special attention to all the vulnerable groups. We've also made good progress in addressing racial and gender-based inequalities through resolutions on Afro-descendants and efforts to combat gender-based violence resolutions on the indigenous peoples of the America. All this, we've taken important steps towards ensuring social inclusion and equal rights for all. Climate change is an important topic for us, especially the impact of rising sea levels on coastal nations. And it is clear that international cooperation continues to be critical to address this environmental and the social consequences faced by our most vulnerable communities. So, as I conclude as the chair, again, I thank you for your dedication, commitment, and collaboration. And it has been truly an honor to serve as the chair of this permanent council. I'm confident that the OAS will continue to advance the causes of peace, democracy, hemispheric security, and human rights in the Americas. On a personal note, I've learned a lot from sitting in this chair and listening to Ambassador Mora's farewell statement gives us that satisfaction, that assurance that because of the work of people like you in the OAS, the Americas will continue to be a zone of peace. And yes, we have lots of challenges, but my experience tackling difficult issues show that diplomacy, the willingness to engage and discuss is the way to go. And we are very, very, very excited about the future despite the challenges. I also extend my gratitude to the permanent observers. Your valuable participation at the recent dialogue between member states and observers have strengthened our collective resolve to tackle the challenges facing our region with your support. Thank you. Of course, I really thank the Secretary General and the Assistant Secretary General. I thank him especially for his unwavering support, but perhaps what I need to thank him most for is that he gave up his assistant to be my deputy chief of mission, Ms. Cinnamon Batara, and so I really want to thank my mission also because the work that they did again allowed me to stand at the wheel and look good because of all that they've done. So thanks also to the staff of the Secretariat. My deepest gratitude. Under the leadership of Ambassador Mendes, the team has given me tireless support and experienced guidance, which was needed to be successful in a position like this. And I know the next ambassador from Bolivia will find that he has a very competent staff here, especially also our legal representatives, very good advice. And I know sometimes, as with all lawyers, you don't like the advice you get, but they make an effort to give the right advice. As I remember once, we had several difficult issues, but one particular difficult issue we were dealing with, and Carmen asked me, so what do you want to do? And I said, listen, we got to just do the right thing for the right reason, and then what happens, happens. And that, I think, is the way that we deal with difficult issues, and it works out. So finally, I want to wish everyone and your families a joyful and peaceful holiday season. May 2025 bring renewed hope, prosperity, and peace to our hemisphere, and that the OAS continues to strengthen, and as a sign of trust in the future work of our organization. Thank you again. I look forward to a great achievement we will continue to accomplish in years ahead. And I'm not a good singer, but it's for the singers among us. Maybe you can lead us with, we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. No singers? Okay, fine. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Colleagues, thanks. This meeting is adjourned.